Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 3. Good morning, Fedir, Kali, and Omojo. Good morning. I see your messages in the chat.
Well, I put your exams home that.
Sorry. Well, good morning, everyone. Before I begin with our, we're pivoting back to category management. If you remember, last Saturday we were talking about strategic sourcing and the many tools I gave you about it. Does anyone have a question so far on? Because you've had 2 weeks to think about this. Does anyone have any questions on, either the concepts of category management and strategic sourcing or the tools I gave you? Did anyone have difficulty using them? So we can address that first before I jump into day 3. Everybody okay? Have you tried the tools?
I was just gonna say I haven't even tried them yet.
Okay, no worries, no worries. Okay, let me just hold on. Still something funky with my audio. I can barely hear you, but all right, let's try. Okay, all right. I just increased my mic volume and your volume output. Okay, so today we have a bit of discussions actually. If last week was more of tools, today was more of today is more of discussions, and we have we have 4 topics to talk about. The profile of a category manager, top 10 insights on category management, the state of category management today, a technical discussion on value creation, and then we end our morning with category management KPIs. Okay, so let's begin. And you'll need pen and paper or a notepad on another monitor for this next activity. Okay, which is the profile of a category manager. So we start with a discussion. Okay. Back in 2010, Kay Bayan of the European Institute of Purchasing Management, EIPM, identified category management as a skill deficit area. So in 2010, she investigated 69 relevant skills in a quantitative survey of SCM professionals, and then she did it again in 2015. Here are the top skills that she was trying to survey of varying importance in the world of supply chain management. Now, I want you to look at these. These are arranged alphabetically. Okay, give them a rank. What do you think are the most important skills for category management? I will reveal to you what people said in 2010 and then how that changed in 2015. So now it's 2024. It's almost 10 years since 2015, but we'll see how things have evolved. So I'll give you a few minutes. Take a look at this. Okay, if you have a second monitor or you can bring Notepad up, try to rank them, or at least put what your top 10 are. Okay, so of all these things, write your top 10. Okay, it's 9:05 now. I'll give you a minute. 9:06. Okay. Okay, does everyone have their top 10 or maybe even top 16 if you went that far? Thumbs up. Are we good? Can I reveal the answer now? All right, thank you, Tammy. Okay, so in 2010, this is what a survey of many SCM professionals said. The number 1 skill for category management was integrity and professionalism. Number 2 was negotiation, and then cost management, category expertise, listening, category strategy, conceptual thinking, market knowledge, problem solving, and analytical thinking. And then all the other skills fell to the bottom. In the chat, how many did you think you had in common with these top 10? Okay, put in the chat. If in your top 10, how many did you list as also? Which ones matched to these top 10? Carolyn said she had conceptual thinking on top. Okay, thank you. Strategic thinking way higher, according to Callie. Negotiation was there. Okay. What else we got? Negotiation, yeah. Oh, Yelena has about 5 of there. Okay, very aligned with the top 10. Integrity is number 1. Nice. Market, okay. Analytical thinking was there. All right. Teamwork on top. Okay. Len had 3 out of the top 10. Okay. Lee said category strategy. Yeah, that's there too. Yeah. Tyne had 4. Okay. Only category expertise was in my top 5, says Kim. Well, Warren, Kim. Okay. Well, about 5 out of, a lot of people mostly had 5 out of 10. So halfway. Okay. All right. Now, okay, this is going to surprise a lot of you. Let's see what it looked like in 2015. It was, I'll give you a spoiler. It was a big change. Okay, here we go. In 2015, the number 1 skill for category management was strategic thinking, and then teamworking. Supplier market analysis came out number 3. That wasn't even in the top 10, I think, previously. Influencing and persuasion, total cost of ownership analysis. That was unknown in 2010. Integrity and professionalism, still there. Listening, still there also, but not as important. Category strategy, weird. It went way down, right? Market knowledge and change management. Okay, that isn't surprising. Okay, and then at the bottom, we have analytical thinking, which used to be in the top 10. Problem solving, negotiation is no longer a top 10 skill in category management. Not even category expertise. Okay, cost management and conceptual thinking way down. Okay, so with your top 10, were you closer to 2010 or were you closer to 2015? That's what I want to hear. Because that'll kind of tell you your own perceptions of category management. Are you old school 2010 or are you more like 2015? By the way, I believe category management today in 2024 is much closer to 2015 than it was in 2010. So let's look at the chat. 2015 by a landslide, according to Callie. Most of you use 2015, yeah. Okay. 2015. That is good news, okay? Also tells me that not everyone here is from Gen X or older. Okay. Warren says closer to 2015, but I don't understand why integrity and professionalism is so high. You need that in any profession. I totally agree. Yeah, but not as high according to the result. According to the survey respondents, not as high as at least in the discipline of category management. Strategic thinking outranked everything else by a landslide, actually. Okay, so what does this tell us, okay, about the art of category management? So in 2010, you had those skills, and they were what aligned very much with what traditional procurement was: negotiation, right? Cost management. Category expertise. You had to be an expert or even came from that field, or the category that you manage. Conceptual thinking, problem solving, and analytical thinking was there. And look how much it changed in just 5 years. Strategic thinking, number 1. Teamworking, supply market analysis, TCO, total cost of ownership, influencing and persuasion, which is a form of negotiation, but the breadth and depth of it goes beyond simple negotiation. And then change management. But the good news is there were things that they still both had in common. So listening was still there, still as important as it's always been. category strategy, market knowledge, and integrity and professionalism. So Warren's comment was right. It was important then, it's still important today. All right. Now, does this make sense, do you think? Let's look at all of these skills, okay, required for successful category management in terms of our 5 pillars. Remember this diagram from day 1? If you look at the 2010 skills, negotiation, cost management, category expertise, problem solving, most of them actually address just one of the pillar, okay? And not even all of it. It's not even the category strategy part. It's the sourcing part. Okay, so that's where your negotiation, cost management, and category expertise come into play. Now, because of the analytical thinking, there's a little bit of that market intel and supply, demand and supply planning, but not much. In fact, they didn't show up very high also on the 2010 skills. So when category management was, I don't even call it new. I mean, it's been around since the 80s, but it had 20 years to develop from the 80s to 2010, and it was still only addressing one of the 5 modern pillars of category management. But in 2015, pretty much all of the pillars are addressed. And let's look at that, okay? Strategic thinking applies to category strategy, of course, from the name, and sourcing, okay? The team working skill is all throughout, because category management requires more people, more specialization. You have people who only do analytics, people who execute both strategy, sourcing, and the management of the vendors and their performance. So they were multi-skilling. Okay, and then all throughout, as I've explained on day 1, there are cross-functional teams, people who aren't even in supply chain helping out with these functions, especially the last pillars, the pillars are here on the right side: supply performance management, supplier relationship management. You have people now coming in from the business, from operations, helping supply chain score suppliers and rank them, and jointly evaluate if their contracts should be extended or modified or terminated. Okay, influence and persuasion is of course part of the sourcing bit. Okay, and a little bit also on managing cross-functional teams. And then of course, because things were changing so much, change management was very important. Okay, and then of course the common stuff, market knowledge, category strategy, that's in the first 3 pillars. And in my opinion, in my observations also, in at least category management in Alberta, because that's where I've been working most of these years, these 2015 skills, for the most part, they haven't changed. They're still up there and required for a successful category management. Does anyone have any comments on what they're seeing? I'm glad that your results on the chat is more aligned with 2015 than it is with 2010. Thoughts, anyone?
Ian, has there been another survey done since 2015, which is a little more up to date?
Not by Kay Bayan. So I'm sure there have been tons of surveys, but this was a popular one though, from the EIPM. Yeah, if she did do it again in 2020, she didn't publish it.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
But you know what? You're all getting a copy of these slides, right? What you can do is, if you're trying to develop your category management department, right? Or better yet, you're trying to break into category management from traditional procurement, or maybe you're already you have a strategic sourcing kind of structure and you want to try to get into category management. You can use this as a survey. Do the same methodology that Kay Bayan did back then. Show people your skills, ask them to think what's important, and that gives you a good profile of the people you have and where they are, right? If they are more aligned with 2015, that's a clear sign that category management could be successful today. But if most of your people think that the 2010 skills are what's needed for category management, then you have some upskilling to do, all right? Or that change management bit. Okay. Carolyn says, I wish we had learned more about change management in SCM education. Agree. But you know, Carolyn, I also teach supply chain subjects at SAIT, and they're mostly very old. Like they're the lessons when K-Bayan did this in 2010. So change management wasn't a thing yet back then, and at least the material I work with hasn't really been updated for the 2020s. So change management, in my opinion, is a deficit. It's not something people think about, but it's very much needed because this ain't your traditional procurement anymore. The skills that people think are vital to SCM, right? They still are, but not in the category management space. It's a different set of skills, skills that people don't normally train for, like strategic thinking. Okay. Yeah, thanks for your comments, people. All right. So another professional organization. So this one's SIPS, still European, but this is the Chartered Institute of Procurement of Supply. So they did a survey of category managers, or people who had the title of category managers. And their survey, this one, by the way, was a little bit more recent. I think this is a 2019 survey, revealed that category managers had the following traits. You might learn a lot about yourselves also when you read these things. Number one, they're usually Gen X, Gen Y, with 10 or more years of experience in procurement. Okay. By the way, this is just survey results. This is not saying that category managers have to be from Gen X or Gen Y. It's just that at the time, which is a few years ago, most of them were, Gen X, Gen Y, so they're in their 40s now. While most have a post-secondary and graduate education, it is usually from a non-procurement or supply chain related discipline. BCom, or some of them even had engineering. Or finance degree, but not most people in category management didn't actually study this sort of thing. And also, if you look at the educational establishments today, it's only very recently that supply chain is becoming a recognized and in-demand degree, right? Especially post-pandemic, when the whole world finally knew what the importance of supply chain, then it became in demand. In fact, with the international student program of SAIT and NATE, the hottest subject is supply chain management, right? People from all over the world, from India, China, the Philippines, are coming to Canada, and they find that this is the most practical, and can't say much about if it's cost effective, but they think it's the most practical way to move to Canada and get employed in this country, is to take supply chain management. But category managers don't typically have that. Number three, contrary to an often perceived view, domain expertise is one of the least important traits. If you remember from K-Bayan's survey, in 2010, it was important that somebody managing a category should have worked in that category, or at least as an expert in that field, to be successful. In this most recent survey, it's one of the least important traits. And maybe you're seeing that also today. The people who are leading category management, or are category directors, category management, they manage the category, they manage the materials and services, but they didn't come from that industry, and they now rely on true SMEs from that space, and that just amplifies the importance of managing cross-functional teams, because they're no longer domain experts. Number four, strategy followed by relationship management are the most important traits for category management. So SIPS found the same thing as EIPM. Strategy, number one. Okay, and then relationship management, number two. Most category managers are unable to define, this is funny for me, unable, because it's true. Most are unable to define their primary category of responsibility as a single discrete category, or even a portfolio of related categories. Before I show you the evidence of this and the visual, I find it hilarious, because I've worked in, I'm on my 6th or 7th company now. It hasn't changed. Category management, the managers, the people leading it, can't define their categories. Do you agree or disagree with that? That most category managers cannot define their area of responsibility as a single category or even a group of related categories? Still unclear. Do you agree with that? Well, let me show you what the respondents said. Okay, so they were simply asked, what's your area of responsibility? Okay, or what category you manage. This was done in Europe, by the way. So most people said it was IT. Okay, and then you have maintenance, repairs, and overhaul, MRO. Okay, and then the categories go down. So here are your typical categories: professional services, raw materials, travel, directs and indirects, facilities, logistics. But by far the largest one is other. They cannot define really, or it could be either multiple or unrelated direct and indirect categories. Most people say that that's where they are. So they could not define it as one of these established categories. And as somebody who does category management analysis today, one of my biggest hurdles is that sometimes our systems are just set up so that it's difficult for anyone to really know what they're managing. Any category manager can tell you their top 5, top 10 vendors that they manage because they're the ones on the phone, most often. But go beyond that, it becomes muddy. You've been in this category for, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years, and you can't properly say who's your top 11th vendor or more. And you're not alone. Most category managers are like that. Right? They feel that they know what their category is, but push them a little further, then it becomes unclear, and they say, actually, I also manage vendors in another space, and it's a shared responsibility with another category management team. So if anybody of you are wondering why it's actually difficult and why there's so much misalignment in category management today, I think it's a data problem, data and the clarity of responsibilities, and that's what we're seeing. Any thoughts on this? Do you see your categories here, or do you also fall in that other? So Izumi says, lean operations. Companies don't want to hire multiple category managers and expect one person to manage all categories, or a few people, right, to manage a few categories, rather than specializing. Yes, Carolyn agrees with that also, and I'm getting some thumbs up also. That's true, Izumi. Category management is, again, I said it time and time again, is expensive, and that's why it fails in most companies. All right, but that doesn't, mean that you shouldn't pursue it, because as you remember on day one, the best supply chain, the best companies with the world-class supply chain organizations, all of them do category management. But it's not something you can just switch on. As you can see, there's a data culture change that needs to happen. There is a mindset change that needs to happen, right? That it's no longer focused on negotiation and costs. So are we ready? Are we ready in Canada to make the transition? Right? I mean, only you can tell, but and courses like these that we're delivering here at SCC can at least, give you the reality of it, and that it is honestly a lot harder than most people think, but still it's worth the effort. Okay. Because of the strategic nature of category management, people here in CM define success very differently from those in traditional procurement. Okay, so I'll show you 2 images. All right. Fighter pilots and architects. All right, and how people in, sorry, I have no labels for it, but anyway, people in traditional procurement, success for them is like being a fighter pilot. All right, and people in category management, they should be less F-16 pilot and more architect. Why is this? Okay, in traditional procurement, what are the main objectives? The things that the organizational goals, the team KPIs, That will determine people's level of success, their bonuses, their, how they're perceived in the organization. In traditional procurement, it's all about quick wins. It's about how many requisitions can you transform into purchase orders in a day? How fast can you get materials and services to the business? All right. And they make decisions by the minute. So somebody in traditional procurement has to have that kind of fighter pilot mentality where they're always thinking on their feet, right? They're making decisions rapidly, and oftentimes over 100, PO decisions in a day. Okay, and they should be happy with that. Okay, that making small, quick wins. It's a numbers game. Okay, when you're in traditional procurement, how fast can you operate your ERP system, and how quickly can you recall which vendors are best for these types of materials and services. But in category management, it's all about the long game. All right, it's about making strategies, making plans for a subcategory that will be managed by you or a team for at least 5 years, could be more. All right. And some people in category management, they never even get to see the fruits of their labor. They start a plan fully knowing that it will be another set of people that will take over and see it to the finish line. Just like an architect, he can make a grand plan for some building or something, and not be the one to execute it. Okay, and then plans takes years. So people in category management have to think like architects also. It's not about quick wins. Can you be happy with working months and seeing no change, to having nothing attached to your name other than the development of a plan, development of a strategy? Can you work months where there's no new contract signed? All right, or you cannot say that, you cannot give a metric that you've achieved, in quantity, just like the guys in traditional procurement. And knowing now everything I said in the previous slides about the skills required for category management and how it's different from the 2010 skills, is there a disconnect? Are the people in category management today still thinking like fighter pilots, and that it's about the number of things you can get out in a day? It's about how many checks you can put in the checklist, right? Number of products you can put out. If that's how your organization is set up, then you're not ready for category management, okay? Because category management, because of its strategic nature, is all about the long game. It's about putting good plans today, setting up relationships, brand new relationships today, so that in 5 to 10 years, the organization reaps the benefits, larger benefits than you can ever get from just cost management and negotiation. Any thoughts on this? Do you agree? Do you agree on this? I made this slide and these images like 8 years ago, and I still think it holds true. That the mindset and what makes a successful category management has to change. Fidier said, makes sense, but it's a hard sell. I agree. I truly agree. Even on just the practical level, how do you define success for a category manager when you can't put out numbers, right? When you can't say, I manage the or my team was able to convert 200 POs this month or something. You can't say that, because that's not what a category management team does, right? Whatever numbers you report is more like, I have standardized the subcategory strategy for 3 of my subcategories this month. That's all you did. It's a very low number, right? Or in our 7 steps of strategic sourcing, we've moved from 7 initiatives. Right now, half of them are in stage 4, executing the RFP, right? Even though 6 months have gone by. Okay, Carolyn says she works for an organization that has annual budgets, and their thinking is also annual. I'm trying to push on that. See, category strategies and managing them and seeing any meaningful improvement in category strategies requires more than an annual thinking. In my experience, you won't see much change in a single year. And if you're moving to category management, my opinion is that you won't actually see any change in in the organization's management of the supply chain. Nothing meaningful in 2 years or less. It has to at least be 3 years. So yeah, it's difficult, right? And that kind of communication has to go to leadership. That it's an investment that requires a lot of people with different skills, and you actually will not see meaningful change in less than 3 years. It's kind of a gloomy picture I'm painting for category management, but it's grounded in reality, right? I'm not selling here the idea that category management is you know that you learn the course, you get the concepts, and then things will change tomorrow. It isn't like that. So it does take a long time, but maybe in a few slides from now, when I talk about value creation, you'll see why it takes a long time. But if you can go beyond simple cost management, the value of category management is much larger. Tammy says it's a marathon, not a sprint. I agree. Okay. My next topic is the top 10 insights from category management. And this is from a research study by SIPS called The State of the Art of Category Management. Okay, so these 10 insights were, again, a result of a survey, a study. It's a little bit of where category management is today, but it also is what some of the lessons here you learned speaks about the difficulty in implementing category management. And if you know the difficulties, you might have a chance of actually overcoming them. So even though category management has been around for over 2 decades, worldwide adoption is still slow. Here's what we've learned so far. Number 1, category managers, and indeed procurement generally, now have the attention of senior executives with their organizations, but do not appear to be using it effectively to influence behavior with their organization. Number 2, category management still lacks a common definition across the procurement profession. The term is applied to a wide range of practices ranging from basic tactical purchasing through to sourcing, through to more sophisticated strategies involving proactive influencing of buyer and supplier behavior. I most recently experienced my organization say they have category management simply because they manage categories. So, which I believe is completely not true. Just because you have categories doesn't mean you're practicing the discipline of category management. And my way of knowing that was that there was absolutely no intelligence on spend reporting. The categories and the subcategories were unclear, hard to define, and every category manager could say who their top 10 vendors are, but nothing beyond that. And me looking at data found that there was about 3,000 active vendors. And if category managers can only name their top 10, then almost 95% of all vendors were actually out of sight, out of view. So that is not category management. Number 3, category managers struggle to focus and specialize when their portfolio has too much breadth, or they're managing multiple categories with few, if any, synergies. Right, Izumi? Or too much depth. They are tasked with end-to-end procurement responsibility, including strategic, tactical, and operational requirements. I remember one of you said that you're trying to become more strategic, but you're bogged down with the day-to-day tactical stuff. You're still concerned about purchase orders and stuff. Who was that? I think it was the person with the printers categories. Are you here? Yes, you're here. There are 32 people on the call. But yeah, you're not alone, see? Hey, where's my... Okay, there we are. Sorry, revealed already. Number 4, category managers working for global companies tend to benefit from higher level of focus on category management. Category management appears to be more widely embedded in global organizations, leading to greater promotion of above target or on target performance. No surprise there. Global corporations have more money to invest in people and change management. Small to medium local companies, not so much. Number 5, category definitions are highly subjective, as is the decision of whether or not spend is considered strategic for the organization. This often leads to an inappropriate allocation of resources across category portfolios, as well as the time spent within categories. Think about the Kraljic matrix that I taught you on day 1. And I said something about that this was a shift, a paradigm shift in the way suppliers were managed, because now people were thinking about risk, not just spend, but operational risk. Point number 5 here, the definitions of categories being subjective because spend is not considered strategic, and that inappropriate allocation of resources. That is exactly what happens when you don't do category segmentation. When you don't care about the Kraljic matrix and you just regress to just ranking everyone based on how much money you spend with them, it's just spend. That will happen. Okay, there will be inappropriate allocation of resources because in every organization, there are suppliers of materials and services where the spend is not that high relative to others, but the operational risk is too much. And without the Kraljic matrix, those suppliers become invisible. You don't see them because you're not thinking of operational risk. Okay, and this is why I said that of all the things I really want you guys to take home, that should be number 1, segmentation. It is the heart of category management, really. To think more than just money, more than just spend. When you think of risk that way, right? So number 5 is indicative of, even though everyone in category management knows about the segmentation, it's been taught for over 20 years now. People just regress to what's easy, to just looking at only spend. Number 6, category managers are still spending a significant amount of their time on tactical tasks, focused on short-term, narrow objectives rather than long-term strategic objectives, which is, again, it's a function of how many people are in category management. If your company is trying to be quote-unquote lean, this is what happens, right? The people multitask, and strategic management is a full-time job. You cannot successfully manage the day-to-day, the tactical stuff and strategy at the same time. It just does not work. Number 7, category managers can no longer rely on strategic sourcing alone to deliver value from their categories. The majority of categories have been sourced at least once and often multiple times. Okay, what that simply means is sourcing, going to market, isn't enough. Okay, that's why the KPI has changed. It's no longer cost savings or cost reductions. The new term is value creation, VC. Number 8, category management objectives are too financially focused, again with the spend thing, okay? Often as a result of a reporting line to the chief financial officer, CFO, which makes it hard to align other category strategies with other measures of value that may be more relevant to their immediate business stakeholders. Can anyone relate to that? When they look at their current KPIs today, it's all about spend. It's all about savings. And I have many stories where chasing savings was actually not the right decision. That chasing things like efficiencies or durability of the product, right? Essentially thinking of total cost of ownership, not sticker price. That was the right goal to pursue, not savings. Yeah, Sarah says absolutely. Yep. Number 9. The key attributes for effective category management are more about relationship management and strategy. So, influencing, communication, commercial acumen, than domain expertise, knowledge of supply markets and specifications. Okay. Number 10, category strategy documents tend to be more focused on observation, the presentation of data, dashboarding, reporting, rather than interpretation. So analysis of relevant data to draw conclusions and inform recommendations. Sadly, this is my world, by the way. This is it's my job actually to make sense of all the data churn that happens in category management and present it in a way so that senior leaders can see the value of what category management is doing. And that is totally what's going on in 2024 even. Category management, the people who try to measure the performance are so hung up on dashboarding, reporting, essentially just making pie charts and bar charts of past data. Okay, that's what observation is. Um, Descriptive analytics, reporting of what already happened. All right, and very, very few people are actually doing real analysis. Okay, data visualization is not analysis. Making dashboards, that is not analysis. That's just turning numbers into pictures. Real analysis is explaining why spend happened, why there is change from this in this category, why are certain consumptions of materials and services trending upwards or downwards, not just simply showing that is trending upwards or downward. That's meaningless without the analysis. And too few people, even in large Canadian companies, very few people do that. And in my opinion, that is crucial to the success of category management. That shift away from reporting and dashboarding and more towards analysis and the generation of real insights. By the way, if any one of you are signed up for my Power BI course happening in a few weeks, there is a big topic there about what the difference between just simple observations and using Power BI to present insights. And anyway, I don't want to sell that. We're talking about category management here. So those are the top 10 insights. Okay. Let's see. I see some comments over here. So Theresa said that price and payment terms. Yeah. Yeah, isn't that the number one focus nowadays? Even in organizations called category management, it's all about price and how to extend payment terms. Forget net 15, we're going net 60, net 90. Yeah, and how much money are you going to get out of that? I mean, there is, and depending on your spend, it could even be significant. But at the end of the day, you're still paying the vendors. Right? There's the savings there is only on interest and the cost of borrowing, but real value does not mostly come from just focusing on those two things. There is a price and payment terms, but you're absolutely right. That's reality. Okay, and someone says interested in the data storytelling piece. Oh yeah, it's a lot of that in my Power BI course. Okay, next topic, value creation. Okay, which is probably the last big topic I have for category management before we pivot again to strategic sourcing next week. But let's talk about VC. And this might even help you form a guideline to create a value creation standard if you don't have one yet in your company. All right. So here we go. Value creation. Value creation, or VC, is the performance of actions that increase the worth of goods, services, or the business itself. Okay, the worth, not the price, not the cost, but the worth of goods, services, or the business itself. Although VC can come from any area of the organization, including the people that actually produce your product, right? The people in operations or people who maintain the company, people in maintenance, or VC can come from anywhere. The supply chain management department has the most control and influence over costs and therefore is most accountable for VC. Truth, that is absolute truth, right? And that's why oftentimes the largest department in a company is supply chain, right? Even though they're not directly accountable for producing what it is that your company does. If they're not the largest department, they're second to the largest department, because there you go. They're the ones with the most control over costs. All right, it's not finance. Finance's main responsibility is to report on costs. Okay, they have external reporting accountabilities that the government sets on them. Okay, but the ones that are literally have their hands in the wallet is supply chain. So that brings the weight of delivering VC solely on, no, not solely, but largely on the shoulders of one department, supply chain. VC is one of the most important performance metrics of a category management organization. As a control, though, the finance organization should play a role in the validation of VC and VC forecasts, because as I will explain in a bit, VC being something new to many companies, it has the tendency to be misrepresented, right? Or in some real cases, even twisted to give the impression that the category management organization is delivering more value than it actually is. And that's why there needs to be a check and balance. And this is the role of the finance organization. If supply chain is saying that they've reduced costs by X amount of dollars, first of all, can finance agree that if that's your cost reduction, will you accept that your budget will be brought down by this much? Or will that reflect on our bottom line, on our financial statements? And if the answer is no, then there needs to be some reckoning, right? But that's, for me, that's the role of the cross-functional people in finance who work with supply chain. It's to validate, the success factors of CM, which is the biggest of which is VC. It is important to remember that category management does not directly benefit from the pursuit of value creation, as it does not own the money that it spends. Okay, it's not your money. You're in the wallet, but it's someone else's money. Rather, other business units, like operations, enjoy the benefits of value creation in the form of reduced downtime, increased production, increased budgets, and efficiencies. Okay, so I'm going to be a downer here again, but the reality is, even though category management here relentlessly fights for VC, they can never claim it as their own, because it's not their money. And so why is that? I mean, how can you be happy then in category management if all of these things that you're prioritizing really is not to the benefit of your organization? It's to the benefit of of your company, right? And so, I like to think of it as you have to think larger than your little organization, your little category management or supply chain organization. You're the team company. You're doing this for your company, the business entity, right? Not just your organization, because again, you do a lot of management, you do a lot of work, but it isn't your money to spend, right? It's the company's money, and you're doing this for the value of the worth of your entire business. Okay, any questions on this introduction to value creation? Does anybody want to add something before I get into what value creation are, the three main categories? But any thoughts about this?
Ian?
Yes, Izumi.
Even in a situation where a company is not formally recognizing category management, that value can also be determined by the people that you're working with, like the business owners, like each, not saying this very well, the people, for example, the field operations that see the value and can state it. If they're being involved, everything you're doing should be able to translate into them being able to state that they've achieved something.
Yeah, like
in their performance evaluations.
Absolutely. The things that we have down here in this last bullet point: reduced downtime, increased production, right? Efficiencies.
Exactly.
Yeah, they are the ones that are, in my mind, even before finance validates the numbers, they're the ones that say it's real also.
Right.
Yeah. Again, here's that change management skill. Here's the management of cross-functional teams. It's the only way category management can be successful. Let me ask a question to all of you. Many of you are in teams called category management. Is value creation a big KPI? Or are you not even using it and it's just cost savings? Is there KPI even more important than VC in your organization today? You can unmute if you want. Let's discuss. So Sharing says currently cost savings, hard to validate VC as a KPI. Unfortunately, most cost savings, VC is harder to quantify according to Fedir. Yeah. Anyone else seeing the same thing? Tyne says we just did a goal session and cost savings was a big topic, but not VC or even total cost of ownership. Oh, that's unfortunate. And by the way, total cost of ownership is even older than is a concept even older than the idea of value creation. Okay, Steve Bass says cost savings are often seen as value creation. It's a subset of value creation, and in my opinion, the smallest subset of value creation.
The cost savings have to be there, though.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like it should
Yeah.
be, we're saving this much, or
Money.
we're achieving this benefit and saving this much. Like I think all senior executives want to see that costs are also being reduced. But it's how you state it, right? Because some cost savings are in soft costs, or it could be an increase in competitive advantage.
Yes, but that's not cost savings anymore. But I agree, Zumi. Absolutely, cost savings is the first subset of value creation. It's the easiest to understand, easiest to measure, and easiest to comprehend by leadership. Because yeah, you got me a discount, so you saved me 10% of my spend. It's easy, right? But as I will show you in a bit, it's actually the smallest. It's the thing that most companies are fighting for, cost savings, is not the largest area of value. You can get bigger value in the other two areas, which eventually translates into dollars also. But if you're just thinking of savings, it's important, but it isn't the biggest. Let's read your other comments over here. So Candice says, I work in regulated goods retail and VC is managed cross-functionally. That's good. Category makes buying decisions to influence margin, supply chain works to manage inventory, holding costs, and operations manage labor costs. All comes together, hopefully a positive P&L statement. Okay, well, there's a little bit of progress there. You've got VC managed cross-functionally. Warren Kim says, agreed. People outside procurement measures procurement success by cost savings. It is difficult to sell VC to people outside of procurement. Yeah, I agree. Also, it's difficult. Yeah, VC is a big push for this year tracking and sign off by business, SCM, and finance by Carla. Okay, expectation of a certain amount per year per category manager. All parties are fighting to sign as each wants to take credit. Yeah, yes, yeah, that's it's good, Carla, that VC is recognized in your company and that it's actually being put as a quota or a target for every category. But as I stated earlier, categories have to just accept the fact that sometimes, especially if you have a complicated technical category, that you won't see VC even in the entire year. But that doesn't mean you're unsuccessful. That just simply means that managing your category, your strategic category, is a lot harder, and that VC will not come as often as others. Okay, like for example, if you are managing, let's say, a construction category versus somebody who manages chemical supply, All right. Chemical supply is easy. It's measurable. So value creation can happen multiple times in a year. Right. You can have a volume discount contract set up here. You can have a price adjustment mechanism on this contract there, and you can do it multiple times. But when you're managing a service category, let's say engineering or construction, all right, and everything is geared towards very large capex projects, which of course do not happen every year, right? You may be preparing for a big one that's happening in 2 years or something, then VC is sparse, right? But when it does come, all right, it's potential to be very big, maybe even the biggest area of VC. So I find organizations that put targets to every category should proceed with caution, all right? Because it might give the perception that the managers of these larger categories give the perception that they're not doing their jobs right, or that it gives them unfair pressure to have the same output as the people managing, let's say, maybe IT contracts, right, or general or office maintenance. They're not as complicated. So VC should be appropriate to the complexity of the category managers. It can't be something that you just paint with a wide brush. Everybody needs to have a X million dollars of VC every year. It's difficult to do that. So what are our 3 main categories of value creation? They're savings. Right now, it's number 1, cost reduction. Okay, so that's savings that positively impact the bottom line. All right, so examples are newly negotiated rates, or that of course result in cost savings. If your new rates are more than your previous rates, that's not cost reduction. Okay, it has to be lower. Okay, newly negotiated rebates or improvements to original rebate arrangements, that results in cost savings. So that's obvious. Everyone knows this. All your organizations are already measuring this. But are you measuring another one called cost avoidance? This is the avoidance of costs, and this part is super important, for which the company is contractually obligated to pay. All right. Unlike cost reductions, which can happen multiple times a year, cost avoidance are usually a one-time thing. Okay. Again, cost avoidance are the avoidance of costs for which the company is contractually obligated to pay. All right. It means it's tied to a contract. All right, which makes it a little bit easier to measure, because if it's not stipulated in the contract, you can't claim it as avoidance, right? But it's also in a way difficult because it's not related to rates at all, right? And sometimes they only happen once in the lifetime of contract. Okay, and then the third area of value creation, the biggest by far, is operational efficiency. And supply chain management absolutely can affect this. Okay, the implementation of a new product or process that results in measurable benefits such as reduced resource requirements or increased production volume. All right, you know this to be true, but it's very rare for an organization to actually manage this, right? Of course, when you search for a brand new vendor that can produce the same good or the service with using new technology that will actually boost your operations, or they can do it with less resources, all right? Yes, there's a savings component to that, but when you do that, when you introduce innovation, all right, and what you're really affecting is efficiency. So Tammy says, could you measure a fast turnaround with repairs needed downtime? Yeah. If doing things better, faster, with less resources is efficiency. That's the definition of efficiency, right? Even if that means starting business with a supplier that has higher rates. Okay. Let's see. Warren says, that's a different definition of cost avoidance than I've generally seen across companies. It's usually defined as the first quote delta to the final negotiated price. Okay, well, you'll see that in my... hold that thought, Warren. We have a discussion on that coming very soon. Okay. But yes, and I agree with you also that companies define cost avoidance very subjectively. This one is the best one I've come across, and in one, not all of my previous companies, one of my companies, I would consider them the one who was most mature with category management. They were aligned with this, that you can only call it avoidance if it is something, if you've avoided something that you were contractually obligated to pay. Okay, so let's discuss. All right, I'm going to give you 3 situations, and you tell me in the chat or unmute your mic if you want, if it's value creation or not. Number 1, during a recession, suppliers were asked to lower their prices, to which they complied. They lowered their prices during the recession. Now, the market is picking up again. All factors point to suppliers raising their prices again. But after negotiation, you were able to keep the prices fixed to what they were last year, or the last time you talked to them. So instead of letting them increase their prices, you fixed it. So value creation is the difference between what the market suggests prices would be versus what you fix them at. Is that value creation or not? Take your time if you want to read it again. Okay, now that you've thought about it, put in the chat if you think it's value creation or not. And if you want, what area of value creation? So we got 2 yeses. We have one says it'd be cost avoidance. Cost avoidance. Yes, cost avoidance, cost avoidance. At my org, it would not be counted, said Yelena. Izumi said yes, if prices fixed last year were prices contractually. Okay, Fedir said yes, the difference between contract and market price. I would say yes, because you are going differently from what the market expects. Cost avoidance. Cost avoidance, all right. Any more? Okay. Ian's answer, I'm siding with Yelena on this one. It's not value creation. I'll explain why in a bit. Okay, but and also in a previous organization, this was actually presented as a justification of value creation, and it was shot down. This is not value creation. Okay, not even cost avoidance. At least if you remember the definition of cost avoidance, the amount that you are contractually obligated to pay. And there's something in this in the problem statement also. The market prices are expected to rise again. They haven't happened yet. The market isn't, everybody agrees that the market rates will go up, but it hasn't happened yet. It's all speculation, right? Anyway, I'll explain later, but in my opinion, and you can agree or disagree with it, I'm with Yelena on this one. It's not counted as value creation. What about the second one? For a bid on general maintenance, you receive 5 bids. Okay, you went out to market, you'd have 5 suppliers to bid on it, and you received 5 bids. After careful selection and negotiation, you have selected 1 supplier to award the contract to. Value creation is the difference between the highest bidder and the price after award, or the final contract price. Let's just say it's lump sum, right? So you compare the lump sum in the contract versus the highest bidder. Okay, think about it and then put it in the chat. Is that value creation? This one's coming a little bit faster. Okay, we have a bunch of no's. We have 1 agree, and it's cost avoidance. Okay. Warren says no. That is a difference in supplier cost. Neither VC nor cost avoidance. Keep going. Keep going. No. The VC would be different from initial cost versus negotiated.
Sorry, the difference between.
The difference between initial cost and versus negotiated with the selected supplier. Okay, Chris says depends. You have to compare the selected bid versus previous rates, not other bids. Carolyn says my org uses this metric and I've never considered it useful. No. Sarah agreed with Yelena. Okay, here's mine. Again, I agree with Yelena and even Chris. All right. This is okay. It's a trick question because number one, in this situation, when you're actually doing a bid, there can be value creation, but certainly not the way I stated it there. All right. First of all, you would never even consider the highest bidder. So that's certainly not a baseline. Okay. Who would be your next consideration after the lowest bidder? The second lowest bidder, not the highest bidder. Okay, so bloating your numbers by getting the difference between the lowest bidder and the highest bidder is absolutely not VC. But it's also not a correct baseline to say it's your negotiated price versus the second lowest bidder. That is also wrong. The right answer is the lowest bidder or whoever the contract price is based on previous rates, existing rates. So Chris said that you have to compare the selected bid with previous rates, not other bids. Yeah, or VC would be versus the negotiated versus the initial cost. Initial cost means what it currently is. The other bid results have nothing to do with it. Okay, especially the highest bidder. You would never go with them anyway, right? So what happens if after this, the final negotiated cost, okay, I didn't mention it here, but if it's actually higher than the baseline, which is last year's cost or your initial cost, then guess what? There's no value creation. Just because you did a sourcing initiative and you got, you got some good rates, it doesn't mean there's value creation, not even cost avoidance, okay? Because there's no contract to compare it against. There's nothing where you are obligated to pay a certain amount. Nothing here. You're comparing two very different things. So it certainly would not fall in the realm of cost avoidance. This is a potential cost reduction kind of value creation, but only if the negotiated rate is lower than the initial rate, just like what Yelena and Chris are saying, not the other bid. So very good, Yelena and Chris. It seems like your organization is a little bit more mature in thinking about VC. Okay, last one. A contractor is invoking stipulations in the contract that results in penalties. Okay, they're suing you or they're saying that we will go to court or we are demanding these penalties because of these stipulations. And then you negotiate with them, all right, after they threaten you. So after negotiating with the supplier, they have decided to waive the penalties. Is this value creation? This is bad contract management, lol. Yeah, it could be, right? If your suppliers are always doing that to you. If you are meeting your obligations under the agreement, then penalties should never come into play. Absolutely, Rose. All right, here's what I think. I agree with Yelena, Warren, and Chering. It is, in my opinion, value creation. Okay, because you're getting out of penalties, and as long as, of course, the contractor has a basis for their asking penalties. If your company really did, there's a breach of contract or you did something where you're going to get penalized and it's stipulated in the contract, right? Changing that by changing the attitude of the of the contractor, or even changing the contract post signing, that is value creation. It's cost avoidance. Because if you did nothing, if there was no action, and the supplier, is asking for the penalties, and you paid the penalties, right? That's a cost to you. So by your actions, you've avoided that contractually obligated amount. So in my opinion, of the three things here, that's the only one that's value creation, and it's cost avoidance. Again, this is just my definition, right? You can disagree also, but that's what I think. So Yelena is 3 for 3. She says if the penalties are existing in the current agreement, so the vendor will have a right to them. Yeah, and that's we make that assumption that when they invoke these stipulations, they're not trumping it up or they're making it up. It's something in the agreement, right? Like, for example, the agreement says you pay them within 30 days of receipt of invoice. And then for several months, you've been paying 60, 90 days, right? Whether you've decided as a company that that's your strategic direction, or you're just really late, right? If the contract says, right, and you signed this contract that you should pay them within 30 days and you owe them a certain amount, the only way to get out of that is if you change the contract or you've negotiated somehow for them not to go after it. Because again, if they did, you are contractually obligated to pay it. So sorry. Okay, so I hope I'm very happy with your responses. I like that there's a difference. That some of you said yes, some of you said no. All right, it just goes to show that value creation truly isn't standardized across the industry. There are many ways people interpret this. And by the way, everything that I just mentioned, those are just my opinions. All right. Okay, I'm not saying that they're correct, but my opinions do come from experience and category management theory also. Right, especially like I see example number one all the time. One of my past roles is the validator of value creation. Before it gets to finance, my role was, if a category was claiming value creation, have it reviewed by the analytics team first. And one of my responsibilities was take a look at their justification and just simply say yes or redo it. And I got this the most. People saying that they saved money because they did their market intelligence. They even justify it with forecasting, right? That according to the forecast, everything is pointing to an increase, but we're holding our prices, so therefore we're not going to get hit by the increase, right? It's in concept, it sounds good, but it cannot again be considered value creation, because what if the market didn't go as high as you thought it would be, right? Then the number you're putting down, okay, will not match finances, right? It does not match your bottom line. And value creation can never be based on speculation. It has to be based on real numbers. And the only real numbers that you have are what you had last year, right? So the past, you compare it to the past. You compare it to or you compare it to what you're paying right now, okay? Not something you think it will be in the future, all right? The only thing you can compare against in the future is if it's something written in the contract. That would be like number 3. Okay, so value creation is measured by TCO, total cost of ownership. Creating a baseline of all appropriate TCO costs and then calculating the incremental business impact from that baseline. So here are some of the more popular areas of TCO that you may want to think about now when you're measuring value creation, okay? So you have acquisition costs, price and volume, and most companies stop there. That's sticker price, that's negotiated price. That's where you get your cost savings from the very first one, acquisition costs. But then after that, when you are running the contract, when it's already in place and it's been happening for several months, there are extra costs to it. There are direct material costs, there are indirect costs. There's maintenance, okay? Transportation costs. And they may not be related to the vendor at all, right? Maintenance and transportation might be subcontracted to someone else, right? Or it's a completely different agreement, but they would exist because of the original contract. You buy this piece of equipment, all right, at a certain price, okay? All right, maybe you think about the direct and indirects that come after it, but that material, that product, that thing, that machine would require maintenance and transportation. And would you do your maintenance in-house? Like you would do it yourself as a business, all right? Maybe hire a few maintenance engineers, right? Are there transportation costs related to the maintenance operations? Whether you do that in-house or outsource it, there's still costs. It's still a cost to the business that would not exist if you didn't go through that agreement with the vendor. And that's why TCO is important. It's not just related to the signing of a contract. It's all the costs associated with it. All right, and then there's even disposal and depreciation costs, right? When you're done with this compressor, this generator, what do you do with it? All right, will you get some value out of scrapping it, or will there be inventory holding costs because it's a big piece of equipment and I have to keep it somewhere and that costs money, right? Or a bunch of scrap metals or something that now I have to put in a yard, right? Carrying costs, like Rosemary said. There are more things than just this, but this is a challenge really to organizations that when you do your contracting, your sourcing, it's more than just bullet point number 1, way more than acquisition costs. Okay, there's a lot more areas of TCO, but that's the change in mentality here. You have to start thinking about all the costs you will incur because of it, whether it's related or stipulated in the contract at all. It's irrelevant. Like my best example here is maintenance and transportation. Even if you do it in-house, right? You're not making a new contract. You're just hiring staff for it. It's part of TCO. Okay. Next. Okay. Baseline. Establishing a baseline is the first step to measuring costs. In the measuring process. So this will have a certain order. Number 1, generally historical costs. So the last price paid as seen in your ERP system or whatever system you're using, it has to be documented. All right, is used as a starting point for calculating savings. All right. And there's a reason for that, because that's what finance will use. And finance is the ultimate say in reporting, because they're reporting this externally. They're the ones reporting to the government. They're the ones reporting to the state, to the shareholders. Value creation must align with the numbers they're reporting. And they're always going to use what has been reported previously. So when you say baseline cost, initial cost, if it's something you've done before, it's not a brand new scope of work, right? It's something you've done before. Your baseline is not bid prices. It's always historical cost if you have it. Okay, so how you would calculate is a straight the new price less the historical price times the quantity or demand. So the quantity might change, maybe, right? The demand might change, but it's this new price less historical price times demand. And by the way, demand cannot be also speculated. This has to be backed up by plans. Like because you might think that I might negotiate a lower price, but demand's going to go up. So it's not value creation. It still is, because if the demand does go up and you didn't have, if you had the old rates, then you would be, spending a certain amount. But again, this demand cannot be speculation. It has to be backed up by plans. Okay. Now, if the current demand is unknown, let's see. Oh, bye, Tammy. I see you in the chat. I'll see you next week. Be safe. Okay, going back to this bullet point. If the current demand is unknown, okay, you don't have plans. Use future volumes or forecast based on historical demand. So again, not on speculation, but if you have historical demand, you can use that for a reasonable forecast. All right, and that's how you can estimate the current, the demand that you're going to use in this equation. External forces that your organization has little to no control over, such as market fluctuations, economic climate, or your supplier's promises, should never be used in the calculation of VC. Very important. It's so tempting to use it, but you can't. That's another justification. Aside from that, these things are just speculation. One of the litmus tests for this is that your organization has no control over it. Your supplier can make threats and promises, but that's them. You didn't tell them to say these things, right? They'll say that, you know what, we're going to raise our prices by 15% for all our vendors. That's what our global strategy is. But because you're our favorite, we will only raise it by 5%. It sounds like VC because they're saying that for everyone else it's 15%, but for you it's just 5%. But at the end of the day, there's that 15% didn't come from you. That could be, for all you know, a bluff, right? You have no control over what they say, all right? And at the end of the day, it's still a 5% increase. So I like this one. This supplier promises, because that's a trick that a lot of people do. They make it. They have this false sense of in sales they inject this false sense of urgency, or they make you think that you're winning, but actually it's either status quo or it's actually worse. So again, litmus test. It has to be something in your control. Okay. New areas of value creation. When your organization starts to think about the triple bottom line, okay, then new value creation classifications emerge. People, planet, and profit. Okay. So as a fourth area of value creation could be sustainability, or activities that have a positive impact to the environment and to the local community. Okay, and with the people part of the triple bottom line, right, is indigenous business, right? Especially in Canada, when doing business in Canada, there are many practical and reputational benefits to working with and developing First Nation communities. I agree with that. It's good business to grow locally, especially First Nation communities, right? So let's discuss, should you put a dollar amount on value creation from those two new areas? So VC area 4, which is sustainability, and VC area 5, indigenous business. Should you put a dollar amount? What do you think?
I'm not sure those can be put in dollar amounts.
Okay. Thanks for the comment. Carolyn says that executive audiences would certainly like to see a number, but I don't think it's appropriate. That's a perspective I haven't seen before. The appropriateness of putting a dollar value on this. Chris Sam says it's hard to quantify. And like Izumi said the same thing. Yeah, it is hard to quantify. Right. It depends on what your organization believes, not what procurement says is VC. That's a good perspective. Yep. Economic multiplier depending on what the business is, says Sarah. Any other thoughts? Should you put a dollar amount? So Steve Best, we do declare spend in the indigenous areas to create visibility of opportunity creation. Okay, I mean, spend is one thing. In my company, we also do that. We declare how much we're spending on indigenous areas. But what about VC? So declaring spend is different from declaring it as savings or value. So does anybody here declare it in a way? Lee says, I think it depends on the case. Example, the printer supplier provided their carbon foot savings from their fleet optimization. That gives us more tangible data to view VC. Anyone else would like to chime in? Okay. Oh, one more. You could use it as a dollar amount. All right, from Donna. Okay, here's my opinion. All right, this is a gray area even for me. But I do agree with everyone who said it is difficult to put a dollar amount. Okay, and where I need to have a stand. So here's my stand. All right. Actually, I had a prepared answer, but when I saw someone say that it might not be appropriate, that gave me pause. So I'm going to say that I like the idea that it's actually more inappropriate to put a dollar amount. Okay, but I think it's inappropriate when you're communicating that to external stakeholders. Okay, when you're talking to your shareholders or let's say the media, right? Putting that you're getting value for, or sorry, not value, when you're getting dollar savings or, putting dollar amounts, right? A number of dollar amount on saving the planet and working with indigenous business does sound a bit inappropriate. However, okay, and this is just the analyst in me, and that I know at the end of the day, we're still running a business here, okay? Sometimes we need to put a dollar amounts because doing initiatives, creating business relationships with indigenous businesses or doing something brand new in sustainability, that costs time and money. They don't come for free. That's activity that the business will churn out. And if it's a significantly large business, executives will only give you the green light if they see some business value to that. And business value is usually measured in dollars, right? But can you put the dollar on reputational effects? Like, for example, if you are perceived not to be working with, or you're hostile to indigenous business, there's certainly a reputational, there are reputational damages that will happen. Can you put a dollar to that? The answer is yes, you can. It's just extremely difficult to calculate. All right. So that's my stand. I think I'm going to change my script on this one by saying that reporting externally does sound inappropriate, but internally, try to put a dollar amount, because again, at the end of the day, think beyond supply chain. Your business isn't doing these things for free, and justification for extra activity, it's usually based on, will the business gain from this, right? So let's read your other comments. It could be good to declare value as it is a contribution towards sustainability and supporting growing business value. I agree, Rose, that declaring the value that comes from it, but not in dollars, for me, not in dollar amounts. Like, the value from doing sustainable activities is reduced emissions, or less water consumption. Absolutely report that. That'll do reputational wonders for you, right? But it's not a dollar amount. It's more, you're reporting sustainability in sustainability terms, right? Same with indigenous business. We are growing the local communities. We are spending. You can even say spend. I'm spending a brand new, $20 million annually, even with indigenous business, and we're going to grow this region of northern Alberta or something. You're stating the value of it, but not the dollar amount to you. That's where my stand is. At least not externally. Okay, and Carolyn says value creation from sustainability and sourcing locally is societal as well as to the company. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're right, Carolyn. Sherry says indigenous business spend is very good for marketing purposes. Yes, it is. Right.
Ian.
Yes, Izumi.
Thinking about the indigenous business side of things, how would you internally calculate a value for that?
Okay, that's a good question. I'm glad you asked it. So how would I approach this? All right. In my experience, sometimes working with indigenous business, oftentimes even higher rates than non-indigenous business. They put a premium for being indigenous, or simply they have no choice because they don't have economies of scale. They're not large companies. So the acquisition cost of doing business with indigenous is actually higher, right? But it could still be an area of measured value creation if you think long term, okay? Imagine getting supply from a community that lives right next to your plant instead of shipping it from China or wherever, right? So initially you don't feel it, but later on you think, hey, I'm actually going to reduce on wait times, right? Or lead times. I'm reducing also transportation costs, whatever, because they're right there. Okay. And there's a dollar amount to that. Difficult to calculate. You need the intense forecasting and market analysis, but it is possible. Another idea could be for trying to put a dollar amount, at least internally, for working with indigenous business, is as you grow their business, because that's what happens. One of the best reasons to work with indigenous business is so that they grow as well. Okay. As they grow, it means new talent is coming in. all right? Or they will be, it's almost like they're vertically integrated with you. They're part of your supply chain now. So any innovation activities you want with them, they will be more inclined to do it because they're now a strategic partner than simply a supplier. Okay, this is why, in my experience, also when we do the Kraljic matrix, the only exception, to me at least, the only exception to the strategic box, remember the high spend, high risk? For me, indigenous business is also strategic, even if they're low spend and low risk, because the gains, it's difficult to measure it, but the gains you get from working with them, both reputationally and them being a partner now, I think they should be treated as strategic, not tactical, not transactional, not surety of supply. So to answer your question, those are some examples of how I could put a dollar amount to it. Like again, sourcing something locally versus internationally, and them being a strategic business partner, they're now more likely to accept innovation, or you want to change the relation of the business and do things differently, maybe do things that are not even industry standard. They're more likely to say yes.
I guess what I was driving at was, for example, you're in an area where there are some indigenous suppliers, but
Mhm.
if you're trying to sort of add value to the community, if you're having to choose between indigenous suppliers and other local businesses that also need, you know, business and strategic partnerships,
Mhm.
uh, how would you, I guess, state a value of using a local indigenous supplier versus a non-indigenous supplier
That is
locally?
also local. Yeah, we're entering the gray area here, but I would think first and foremost reputational, right? If you're comparing two neighboring suppliers, they're both right next to your plant, right? So there's really no gains from doing it locally anymore. There's certainly more reputational benefit to working with indigenous. And and all those intangibles like growing their community, meaning developing the skills of their people that who knows might eventually be part of your operations also. There's those
Mhm.
things.
Okay.
Yeah. So Chris says in the comments, I guess it would be like anything else. If this represents say 5%, but see more benefit by increasing this focus, perhaps you can justify 10 or 20%. You don't want to limit the opportunity if it exists. I agree. Totally, Chris. Yelena says, um, okay, and on how to measure this, if the product will be business generating for you, forecasted sales. Yeah. Yeah. Well, can you give an example? Of an example of a contractor that's not only supplying you something, but will be generating business for you?
So because I work in IT, I was specifically thinking about IT. So a software product, for example, that could be customer facing and result in increased sales, maybe
Ah,
marketing or something like that.
okay. Okay. But indigenously created or
Yeah,
locally.
if it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
indigenously owned.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, okay. I get it now. Yes, if the product that they are supplying is directly tied to your revenue generating activities, like
Yeah,
like
exactly.
what you said, like point of sales or something. Yeah, that's a very
Yeah,
good
or just
example.
even just like feedback, maybe directing more customers to your product. Like, I mean, I'm specifically thinking IT, but it could be Aboriginally sourced too, I suppose.
That's excellent. Thank you. Thank you for contributing. I might even use that
No
next time.
worries. Awesome.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's have a break. I think I went. I should have given you a break a while ago. It's 10:35 now. Uh, I'll give you guys 15 minutes for a quick snack. We only have one topic left, so let's meet back in at 10:50. 10:50. It's 15 minutes. Grab a breakfast. I should have given you a break earlier. I'll see you back, and then we'll have one last discussion. Okay. See you later. And we're back. Okay, can I get a thumbs up if you can see what I'm seeing and you can hear my voice? Thank you. All right. Okay. Last few topics. All right. So let's talk about the KPIs for category management. I generally classify this as goals and KPIs, but let's look at them. The goals of category management must align with those of its stakeholders, and their goals generally fall under three categories. Reduce total cost of ownership. So for category management, it would be reducing purchase costs, reduce cost of risk, reduce internal process costs, reduce fixed costs, improve the cost of quality, reduce working capital, improve delivery performance, and reshaping consumption. Another area would be increasing revenue. So it's the opposite of reducing costs, increasing revenue. So that would be improving the marketing effectiveness, accelerate new product development, entering new markets, enable new business capabilities, and the support of other stakeholder goals like improving flexibility, responsiveness, or delivery. I don't know what this means, but variabilize asset structure. If anybody knows what that means, let me know, because I don't know what that variabilize asset structure. Support a sustainability goal or to strengthen the brand. So what this slide is saying that these are shared goals, common goals, and so any KPIs that are designed for category management should support one or all of these. Okay, Carolyn thinks that variabilizing asset structure is sourcing assets from multiple suppliers. Hey, maybe I think that might be it. I'll reword this. In other words, like having backups to things, right? Having multiple suppliers for certain categories, perhaps. Yeah, I'll look it up. Okay. And category management will have many levers to pull to achieve these goals, like strategic sourcing, value engineering, compliance management, purchase to pay support, SRM or supplier relationship management, risk management, value chain network configuration, waste elimination, and more. So here are some sample KPIs you can use today if you're not already using them, and I invite you to add more. There's a ton of ways you can measure the success of category management, but in the spirit of the definition of KPIs, key performance indicators, you really shouldn't have a lot. I would think no more than 10. Okay. And I say that because I've been involved in many balanced scorecard initiatives, and in a balanced scorecard, according to the guy that invented it, Kaplan, there should be no more than 20, in fact, metrics in a balanced scorecard, and that includes things outside of costs. So people metrics, operations metrics, all that should be no more than 20. So for category management, my opinion, no more than 10. So number one, I put value creation up there, the number one KPI for category management. Okay. And then we have spend on contract or the reduction of spend leakage. Does anyone know what that means?
Maybe is that spend that you really aren't getting any value from, and you could maybe get rid of that product or agreement?
That's not the traditional definition of spend on contract. Good guess though. What it is how much of your total spend is based on a contract. So are you following negotiated rates? Like you negotiate the price sheet of something. So when you actually buy this thing or pay this service, are you following what's in the contract? That's what spend on contract is. The opposite of that, it's really the same thing, but the reduction of spend leakage. So when you don't follow agreed rates and you just buy from the store or use a supplier you don't have a contract with, I mean, there's nothing stopping you from doing that, right? That's called spend leakage. You're not like all the hard work that gets into sourcing, you're not following that. So it's leaking. It's uncontrolled. Okay. Another one is spend strategically sourced. This is different from spend on contract. Spend strategically sourced means the portion of the spend that comes from contracts that follow the 7 steps of strategic sourcing, rather than you did a regular 3 bids in a buy and you gave it to the lowest bidder. That's a contract. Spend on those, that's spend on contract, but it isn't strategically sourced. Something that is strategically sourced means there was internal and external analysis of the demand. Okay, there was a pre-qualification process and qualification process for the suppliers. There was a lengthy negotiation and contract reshaping, and there's even a supplier performance management program put in place. So how much of your spend went through that route? That is spend strategically sourced. And then here's a classic one. The amount of free text purchase orders versus outline agreement, or auto PO. So what that means is when a company is mature enough to have an ERP system, the job of the ERP system, or enterprise resource planning system like SAP or Oracle, is to make it easy for the business to order things. So the process is usually the business has a requisition for something. Is there a purchase requisition? They need a piece of equipment or they need the service done. The people in supply chain will now look at that and route it to the proper vendor, because there are strategies in place. You just don't buy a thing where the business wants you to buy it from. It should be where you have an existing agreement or a strategy that says, we have multiple suppliers for this product, but the priority is to buy it from these guys first because they have the best rates, or we have a contract with them, blah, 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 or we have some obligations to them, right? And when you don't follow that process, right, because there always will be demand for materials and services that don't have contracts or are not part of the scope of existing suppliers, but you need them. They're emergency or something. So you still need these purchase orders to go out. And because they're not part of an online agreement, right, it's called free text, meaning the buyer just types in what he needs, and he types in whatever the quoted price, not the contract price, it's just the quoted price, or worse, a price he just picked up from a website, right? Those are completely allowed and sometimes required, because you can't capture everything in contracts, right? You measure the ratio of that versus purchase orders that are following an outline agreement or online agreement, or what some companies call them auto PO. So when something is auto PO, meaning what happens is the business has a requirement, they have a purchase order, it does not even pass through supply chain. It goes directly to the right supplier because the supply chain people that set it up in the ERP system automated it. They said that if it's this part or this service, it does not need to be reviewed anymore by category management because we know exactly the supplier for that, and they already have agreed rates. So you'd like it to move towards that. You want to get as much as your spend possible. It'll never be 100%, but you want to have as much in outline agreements or auto POs than you have on these free text emergency stuff, because also those tend to be uncontrolled. They did not go through the benefit of negotiation. The prices are usually higher, right? And then you have a whole list of KPIs under an area called Supplier Relationship Management, SRM, right? It's a very big topic, and I'm going to focus on that next Saturday, but I will give you another tool with a ton of SRM KPIs. And I will teach you how to use that tool and turn it into real, something you can deploy right away, like scorecards for SRM. Okay, but for now, I'll say that there's a bunch of KPIs under SRM that should be considered key metric for category management. And then you have the big metric, very difficult to calculate, but if you can, it's up there, ROSMA. That is the return on supply management assets. It's not something you see in many category management departments, but it exists in the world-class category management organizations. This is essentially value creation, the first bullet point, divided by the cost of running the supply chain organization. So salaries, software licensing, the rent of the offices, everything that the business is spending to have a supply chain management department. That's the denominator. And a good ROSMA, of course, is greater than 1. It means you're delivering more value than it costs to keep you around, right? Extremely difficult to calculate, but again, it's a very good one. Because ROSMA means you already have a mature way of calculating value creation, and that includes everything: avoidance, efficiencies, cost reduction. If you can get that big number and then divide it by the cost of running your supply chain, then you've got ROSMA, and you're one step closer to being like a world-class category management organization. And more. Let's read what we have in the comments, what you guys said. Okay, off-contract spend. Yeah, that would be, Carolyn, that would be the spend leakage. It's off-contract. Scope creep, that could be one. You're measuring of all your committed scopes this year, how many retained the original scope and how many have changed and how many times they've changed. Okay, in my experience, that was a KPI for certain contracts, but it can also be for the entire category management, especially if those are the kind of contracts you manage. Things that have scope of work. You're not just outright buying materials, but you're always negotiating some kind of scope. Then measuring the variance of original to final and scope creep. It's a great thing to measure. Let's see. Omojo says buying outside of the contract when you already have a contract with the supplier. Yeah, that's spend on contract. Non-compliance is, you're right, Izumi. Non-compliance to processes, maybe. Non-compliance to contract strategies is something you can measure. Okay, Yelena says supplier consolidation, reduction similar to spend on contracts. Ah, yes. I don't know why I didn't put that there. That's a common one I'm very familiar with. We used to call it supplier rationalization, but consolidation is the same thing. It means that if you had 1,000 suppliers for all your goods and services, can you get it down to 700 suppliers or something, or even half, 500 suppliers? So the business never feels it. They still get everything they need. They get their materials and services, but the cost of managing it is much less because you don't need to hire a lot of people to manage, 500 contracts compared to 1,000 or more. So yeah, absolutely. Supplier consolidation. I'm going to edit this slide right after this one. I'm going to add supplier consolidation or supplier rationalization. Anyone else have, in their experience, had certain KPIs that aren't here on the screen? Pretty much covers the key stuff, if you ask me. Okay, the key KPIs. Okay. All right. If you think of something, just put it in the chat, and I will add it. In fact, to my material over here for the next time I teach this. But yeah, hope you all understand the basic concept of this, and that any KPIs that the category manages, ultimately your compass is this: does it align to one of these? Because if you think of a KPI and it has nothing to do with any of the stuff you see here, it doesn't reduce TCO, it doesn't increase revenue, and it doesn't support the stakeholders' goals. Why are you measuring? Why is it? Is it something that even defines success? So this is like your moral compass, and these are just examples of KPIs. Our final topic of the day are the support functions for category management. These are the kind of the groups of people with specialized skills that, if you have the budget for it, it would be nice to have them in the category management department. But it's not all category management departments have these sub functions. Okay, so to further develop the CM organization, it is sometimes beneficial to have specialized support function groups. Okay, and sometimes these are people with no purchasing experience. They did not come from supply chain at all, but because they are experts, they're specialized in these areas, they can greatly enhance the capability of category management. Number one, supply chain management analytics. Okay, so typically these people are data analysts, business intelligence specialists, data engineers, and maybe even data scientists. Okay, and oftentimes people in this space came from other the disciplines, or they usually have computer science, computer engineering, even engineering backgrounds, and maybe have zero experience in supply chain. But look at the things that they can do. They can analyze internal demand. Okay, they would work well with another support group called Market Intelligence to produce forecasts. Because they're so good with working with numbers and reporting, they do stewardship. They're the ones responsible for the reporting of their KPIs, these metrics. If they're advanced enough, they can even run simulations and do scenario analysis. What if we went with this vendor instead of that? What if we changed our demand this way? Something that a procurement person may not necessarily be good at, but that's what these people are trained for. Okay. I'm sort of an oddity because I came from procurement and strategic sourcing and category management, and now I'm in that space. I currently work in SCM analytics, but it gives me a really great perspective because coming from someone who was doing category management, now I'm measuring it, seeing if it actually works. And a lot of the content I've had in these slides were really my commentary on what works and what doesn't. Right, what's realistic, what doesn't, and I combine that with the stuff I see on studies, and essentially this is the culmination of 20 years of doing this. So that's what you're seeing here. You could have another arm support group in CM called Market Intelligence. So typically they're economists, all right, or people who have years of doing market intelligence, even if they've never produced a PO in their life. Okay, but the things they can do are they can analyze external demand and market forces. They work with SCM analytics to produce long-term forecasts also. They produce should cost models. Okay. I might have mentioned this already in the previous meeting, but a should cost model is simply a breakup of a product or service to its basic components, right? So what I mean by that is if you're buying a compressor, what are the things that make up a compressor? Okay, steel, rubber, copper, ball bearings, impellers, the basic parts. And these parts are sourced somewhere else, all right? The supplier might supply you the compressor, but maybe he's not the one building it, or at least he's not building all of the components, all right? A lot of the process that happen with these more complicated products is assembly more than fabrication. But a market intel person will tell you how much the compressor should cost, because this is the cost of steel, this is the cost of rubber, this is the cost of copper, those things. He knows the input costs that make up that product. And that's important because now you have a baseline of comparing the sticker price of something versus what you think it should cost, or they will help you in forming the basis for price adjustments. If the market is going up by this much and your suppliers are raising their prices, are they raising it fair, or are they just riding the whole bandwagon of everyone's going up because of inflation? So I will inflate it. I will inflate my prices by 10%, even though a market intel person might be able to see, but the input costs have only gone up by 2 or 3%. So where is this extra 7% coming from? Those are the smart kinds of conversations you can have when you have these people on your team. Okay, so that's what I mean by they can provide recommendations and negotiation support. All right. Then if indigenous business and sustainability is a priority for a company, I've worked with organizations that have a sub-department just for that, a sustainability and indigenous supplier engagement division or department. So they constantly search for environmentally sound ways to do business, which may include the introduction of new technology or new suppliers. Okay, and they introduce capable First Nation suppliers to category management's pool of suppliers. And in my dealings with them, I realized that it is quite a special skill, because you can Google all of these qualified suppliers for your product, but a lot of these First Nation suppliers, all of them eminently qualified for it, they don't go in the same, boards or the same lists that you would find Googling, and they would post their capabilities sometimes only on local databases. And it actually takes a skilled relationship manager to find these suppliers. So, you might think that Google has everything and that you can find all suppliers online. In my experience, that actually isn't true. It's not, especially with First Nation suppliers. They have their own list of here's what we can do, here's where we're located, that it's not that easy to find. Okay. And when it comes to the sustainability part, right, these are people who are very much in tune with the latest trends in technology. Okay, they're always searching for suppliers who can produce something that you've never used before, but they in their mind, usually these are technical guys. They think that you should give it a try. Okay, like I can think of one example. Scaffolding is something that almost never changes. Scaffolding in the scaffolding supply. So these are contractors who rent you out their scaffolding. Sometimes they sell it to you, but they essentially they rent it to you. Sometimes they assemble it themselves and take it down. But scaffolding, and that it's one of those things that hardly changes. Okay, a scaffolding that was built in the 80s, excuse me, is still very good enough to, as long as it doesn't rust it down, they're still okay to work in 2024. But in a previous experience of mine, I was introduced to a supplier with a brand new kind of scaffolding that was toolless. And I was intrigued. I said, wow, toolless, meaning they can erect a scaffolding with just the use of their hands. They don't need special tools or certain PPEs to put up the scaffolding. And what intrigued me the most is they could erect the scaffolding in less than half the number of people to erect it with, and in a quarter of the time. And if you're from Calgary, you've actually seen this, and if you lived here long enough, you've seen this in action. It was the scaffolding used to create The Bow, you know, that building in downtown Center Street with the big head, the big 3D head in front of it. A lot of people take pictures there. So that glass building was used with a brand new kind of scaffolding that essentially you can erect with just 2 people. 2 people can erect and modify the scaffolding without tools, and can do it in less than a quarter of the time it would to erect traditional scaffolding. I remember I was the category advisor for that one, maintenance services, and I said I took a look into it, and what I found out was very intriguing. This could reduce schedules. It could get turnarounds done quicker, because when you're doing a turnaround or scheduled maintenance, it's highly dependent on how fast you can erect your scaffolding and how fast you can take it down, right? And it takes days really to do that. But with this new technology, they can do it in hours, not days. And I said, hey, the price though for this new kind of scaffolding was more than double traditional scaffolding. So I had to do a lot of analysis, and thank goodness I came from analysis also, that I might be paying more on the acquisition costs, but what are the benefits that of getting a turnaround done 5 days earlier? It doesn't sound a lot, right? But let me give you an idea of this out of the box thinking. Okay, the spend on scaffolding was a little under $10 million. Okay, to have a contract for scaffolding, and you'd be paying maybe even more than double with these new guys, right? But what is the opportunity cost? Meaning, how much money are you throwing on the table? All right, for every day that your plant is not running. That was my question. Okay, because when you're in a turnaround, when you're doing general maintenance, you're not producing anything. You're cleaning stuff. You're fixing damaged equipment. And for the company I used to work with, that was $100 million a day. $100 million that that's not earning, that's not going into your bank account for every day you are not operating. So I did the math. Okay, I'm going to pay $20 million now on this scaffolding contract, but if I can get a turnaround done just 5 days faster because of the portions of their scheduling that was dedicated to erection and disassembling of scaffolding, I could slash it down by 5 days. That's $500 million right there, approximately. Okay, so does that justify the extra $10 million you'd be spending in scaffolding because it is roughly double? Of course it does. So that's category management in action. If you were just looking at sticker price, if you're just looking at acquisition cost and not total cost of ownership, it's a no-go. It's double the price, right? But when you're thinking beyond it, if you're thinking total cost of ownership, where would I use scaffolding on? And I could earn the company an extra $500 million. Okay, I might be exaggerating a little bit, but it's something like that. $500 million because you could get the turnaround done faster with this new technology. There's value right there. right? It's revenue generation. It falls in the third category of VC, efficiencies, right? Because it's certainly not cost reduction. The cost of my contract is double. Okay, there's no cost avoidance because I'm not, not doing anything that not complying me, compelling me to pay a fine or something, or getting out of something contractually. But it's efficiencies. The cost might be more, but the business is, even though it's not supply chain related, the business is generating more revenue. So that's still VC. See what I mean by, 30% more if you're looking outside of just costs. So that's I did that with the help of the sustainability people. They're the ones that introduced me to this new technology kind of supplier. Okay. Does anyone have any thoughts or experience working with these kind of support functions in supply chain? Do you even have them currently?
I used to at my previous company, but not at my current one, which I've been at for 9 years. So
in category management, where you are now, who does analytics? Is analytics done?
Actually, you know what? We do have one guy that can pull some reports for us, but our tools are very limited. So we still have a lot to grow there.
Yeah. One guy.
So it's pretty much us. And then we might go to this one guy for spend history.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel for that one person. There's not a lot one person can do, and if he's getting requests from the entire team, pretty much all he can do is report on historical spend. He won't have time doing external market analysis, much less forecast anything. So this is usually why analytics is a team, not just a couple of guys, right?
Yeah, and for forecasting, we actually go to the business stakeholders and get their help. So. But yeah, for spend or historicals, we go to our one guy on our team. But yeah, that's pretty much it for now.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Let's see. Rosemary says, yes, we have a data and analytics specialist. Also one person. Okay. Also supporting supporting our procurement team. Again, Rosemary, I'm just going to guess it's the same situation as Yelena. This specialist is great at pulling historical spend, but does he ever have time to do anything more than that? Like, descriptive analytics, which is, reporting of the past, is one thing, but a team of analytics can look forward, right? Oh, Rose. Okay, yes, and he's my husband. Wow, that's awesome. You're both in supply chain. He does the math, and you do the category management. Awesome. That's an awesome duo. Okay. No one said that they have any market intel. Is the function of market intelligence, or looking externally, something that is expected of people in category management, meaning the buyers, sorry, not the buyers, the category managers, the strategists, the advisors, they're doing their own MI, or have you worked with a team that's just focused on MI? So with Warren, category managers are supposed to know market intelligence. Wow, that's some high expectations there. Remember, the people who make a career out of market intel, they're economists, right? They look at the market on a daily basis. They look at stock tickers. They're constantly looking at the fluctuations and trends, political happenings all over the world that affect transportation. Can you imagine, as a category manager, you'd be doing that on top of your regular duties of writing strategies and managing suppliers? It's info overload, if you ask me. I mean, if you want to do MI right, okay? So see, Carolyn says the business areas try to do limited MI and aren't very good at it. And then Warren also says that category managers do work with the business unit internally, and Gartner, okay, and other external sources. And Cherry says we rely heavily on our suppliers for MI for commodities. Now, I'll say that I've seen that too, because they're the experts at, of course, what they supply, and they can, if they're transparent enough, they can help you with MI. But of course, they will never give you any MI that is detrimental to their relationship with you. They won't tell you that their competitors have better prices or that they're relying on outdated materials, right, for their product. They'll never tell you that. So it's a starting point to get MI from your suppliers and for MI on products and commodities. But ultimately, I think it's more advantageous if you either do it in-house or you contract another group for that. MI from the business, they will help you forecast because they're part of what they do is business planning, so they know how their consumption will change moving forward. But they're not very good at is costs, right? Because that's not their goals, right? Their goals is to keep operations running. Cost is only secondary and you're lucky if you have a business unit that can also advise you on cost. It should actually be the other way around. The supply chain is advising them on costs, but certainly at least on the demand side, working with the business is common. Okay, all right. And before I close this, any comments on working with a sustainability or indigenous supplier engagement department, if you've even heard of that before? So none of you have worked with a team that does just that, sustainability and indigenous? It's also expected of category managers, maybe, like Warren. I'm just going to conclude and say, yes, it's also an expectation. You not only have to manage your suppliers, but you should also keep your finger on the latest technology and should know where all of the indigenous suppliers are located and what they do. Poor category managers. Okay, and with that, I'd like to thank you all for sitting in another weekend with me. I hope you, again, as always, learned something new. I hope you found my lecture engaging. And I enjoyed our discussions on the chat here. I learned something new, and I will even change my slides based on what information I got over here. So we have one last Saturday to go. We're pivoting back to strategic sourcing, right? And this time the biggest topic will be supplier relationship management, SRM. Okay, it's what happens at the very tail end of the 7 steps of strategic sourcing. And I'm going to give you all a big tool. Like, this is a tool that if you've never done SRM before, you can fully rely on the tool because it is end to end. A tool that will teach you SRM, that will make scorecards for you, and will even evaluate the scorecards when they come back. That's the kind of tool you'll get next Saturday. All right. All right. Thank you all. Hey, Rosemary has this comment. She says, this has been a timely session. Our team is setting our KPIs this coming week. Yay. You want a copy of these slides, Rose, so that you have something this week? You don't have to wait for Kathy to send it out. I can give you a copy now. Stephanie says, really enjoyed the session. Thank you, Ian. Yeah, happy weekend, everyone. Okay, Rose, give me your email, Rose. I'll give you a copy of the KPIs part.
Thanks, Ian, and thanks, class.
Thank you, everyone.
See you all next week. Bye.
Well done, Helena. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thanks, Ian.
Bye, everyone. Enjoy the snow in Calgary.
Oh, hi, Ian. Can I ask a question about the
Sure.
Power BI?
Of course, yes.
What are the major focuses of that course? Is that more technical oriented, or as what you just mentioned, you will also talk about the data analysis part? What's the percentage?
Okay, so it is 50% the tool. So how to use Power BI. Okay, so that includes all of the dashboarding stuff and the design stuff. It's 25% Power Query, because no dashboard is no real good dashboard is complete without the proper data modeling aspect of it, and 25% data storytelling. So essentially, you can use PowerPoint. You're already doing data modeling, sorry, Power BI, and you can do data modeling, how do you put information on a dashboard so that it drives action? So it's a little bit design, but it's more really, can you tell a story with it? So that's 25%.
So the third component is more about data analysis, or what kind of conclusions that we can
Yes.
draw from
Yes,
those
there's
data.
not technical analysis. I won't teach you how to do, let's say, regression or correlation analysis, but I will say that why analysis is important. And when you have the results of analysis, how do you tell a story with that, right? If you want real data analysis, I have an Excel course where I teach descriptive, predictive, and even prescriptive analysis. And that's in depth. We will actually do stuff like Monte Carlo analysis, simulation, forecasting, that sort of thing. But in my Power BI, it's a dashboarding tool, right? So I would teach you how to make effective dashboards. And there's a little bit of data storytelling for a presentation. The big data storytelling course I have is the PowerPoint course. That one is 50% data storytelling. I will teach you techniques of data storytelling so that anytime you present anything, you will be super impactful. And then the other half is how to use PowerPoint.
Okay. Can you say that again? What's the second component of that Power BI course? The
Okay,
25% of.
So Power BI is three things. 50% Power BI itself, the tool. 25% is data modeling using Power Query.
How to understand that?
So you don't just connect data to Power BI just like that. You shouldn't do it that way. You should, usually you're connecting multiple sources of data, right, to Power BI. What data modeling is after you connect them to Power BI, you shape them in a way so that all of these data sources are talking to each other, and that when you create a data model, you're making your dashboard more optimized. It performs faster, and ultimately becomes even easier to use. And then only then can you start making a dashboard. That's what data modeling is. And a lot of people don't do that. They just connect their Excel spreadsheet or SAPs to Power BI, and then away they go. They make their charts and tables, and it's not supposed to be that way. You have to do data modeling first.
I see. Okay, that's exactly how I understood the Power BI functions, to be honest with you. Yeah, just translate from Excel to the dashboard. That's it.
Yeah, I'll teach you.
No, that's not the case.
That should not be the case. It can do that, but you're going to come up with a dashboard that either it will break, or it's very slow, right? Or people don't understand it, or worse, there are certain visuals that will not work if you don't do data modeling. There are some like that you cannot make a basic table. This bar chart just simply won't work even if you connect your data, because you didn't do the data modeling part.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's the requirement for our technology from our end? Do we have to have the Power BI in order to follow your course?
Yes, you should have Power BI installed on your computer. And if you have a company computer, no problem. You're from TC, right? So you already have Power BI. If you want to use a personal laptop to join the course, you can install the free version of Power BI.
So that's doable as well. That can beat the requirement.
It does. Everyone has access to Power. It's a free software. The only thing you cannot do with Power BI free is you cannot publish a dashboard, but that's okay. Because you can publish at work.
Okay, gotcha. One more question about the total cost of ownership.
Yeah.
I didn't get a chance to ask you that. I'm just wondering, may I understand that the TCO is primarily related to the equipment acquisitions, so it's not really applicable for the service procurement. Is that correct?
No, there's service also.
So how do you define the disposable, cost for service-related purchase then?
Okay, for example, if let's say you're engaging maybe a construction contract or something, and it's on a big project, okay? You're paying for the rates of the guys, but what if you need this to be, let's say, for example, a 24-hour operation, like there's shifts happening for 8 hours. You need to house them. If you don't have housing for them, then you need to put another contract for trailers or for what do you call this? or to even book them in local hotels or something, or they're camp costs. That's not part. It's sometimes that's not part of the contract, and that's not part of your agreement. But you have to do this because where will people sleep? Where will people stay? Right? When they're at a remote field. So that's TCO because it's extra costs for you, even though they're or
Even if they're not equipment purchase.
yeah, it's
So-
not equipment purchase. It's just it's services, right?
Mm.
Or another example is, let's say they okay, we'll stick again with construction services. And they're expected to use some of your tools, your specialized tools. They're going to break some of these tools. So it might be a service contract, but there's also a portion of replacement of tools. Or maybe they require a special PPI, I don't know, gas masks or something that they don't have, or they have it, but it's not approved by your company. They require a certain higher level of PPE. So you have to provide that, right? They cannot go on site if they don't use the special PPE. That's not for free. There's a cost for that too. So I would say
Gotcha.
TCO is for everything. It's not just materials.
Okay, got you. Yeah, I just thought, from, my initial interpretation is, oh, that's just for the goods, equipment purchase. Services are not relevant to that, but that's not the case. You need
That's
to
not
look
the
at
case,
the
yeah.
overall, the comprehensive picture.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to measure for materials for sure, but I've done TCO for services also. There's always a TCO for service, always.
Okay, got you. Thank you so much, Ian. Really
You're
appreciate
welcome.
your
You're welcome.
advice. Okay, have a nice weekend.
Have a nice weekend. Am I seeing you at the Power BI course?
I will assess it. I'm
Okay.
contemplating on that one.
All right, no worries. I think it starts in 2 weeks, so you got time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see. Tosin and Omojo, you're still here. You have questions?
I'm just about leaving now. Thank you.
Okay. Have a good
Thank
weekend.
you so much, Ian. And you too. Bye.
Bye.
Hi, Ian.
Hey, Omojo. Yeah.
Hi. Okay. Just a quick introduction. We worked together at Suncor.
We did? Oh.
Yes, we did. I got to know you through Enterprise Analytics.
Okay. I already moved out of category management. Okay. Yeah.
Yes, you did. And I think it was a particular presentation, a Friday morning, where it was you presenting. And I think it had to do, I'm trying to remember the name of the doctor, but it was a doctor who had something to do with ending the spread of bacteria. I think he was controversial at the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
The hand washing guy,
The
Dr.
hand washing guy. Thank you.
Yeah, Ignaz Semmelweis, where he
Thank you.
Yeah, he had all of the right things. He did everything right for data
Yeah.
storytelling, but he didn't use data visualization. He used tables, and he was ignored by everyone. Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know that was, my first time I met you, and it was a Friday. I was working from home that day, and my 10-year-old at the time was there. So when he got to know that I was going to take a course, I didn't even tell him it was you. He just read your name. He was like, I know that guy. That was the guy who said, oh yes, just, I just wanted you to know that. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Right. No worries. I am still with Suncor in supply chain. But
wow, good for you, because I know so many people either quit or was laid off in supply chain.
I know it was an extremely difficult period, and we're still recovering from it, I would say. Right? Yeah.
Wow.
So I've been a buyer, and I have no category management experience. So everything you're saying is kind of new. Like I've heard of CrowdStrike Matrix in the past, right? But I haven't seen it being applied before, right? So that's why I want. Sorry, go ahead.
What's funny? It was applied in Suncor.
Well, I can tell now. After the first course, I went into the system. I just started digging for more information, and then I saw all of it. I was like, oh wow, right? But staying in class now, like opened my eyes to, seeing how the CrowdStrike Matrix is applied.
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So I think that's good. So my question would be, how does one move from, this role, like if you're to move into category, what steps would you take? So like I've been a buyer and then, but then I want to grow the career.
Well, first of all, you can't move into category management if your organization doesn't have it. So I know
Yeah,
that Suncor is a little different now. They're not doing category management anymore. So
absolutely.
I mean, it's difficult, painful for me to say this, but if you want to move into category management, I don't think it's going to happen at Suncor.
Yeah. Oh, I know that.
Yeah.
I can see that. Yes.
Yeah,
So thank
'cause
you for being truthful. Yeah.
yeah, because they stopped doing it, and I don't know
Yeah.
why. They were one of the first to do it in Alberta. They started category
Wow.
management in 2011. That's what 13 years ago they had it already, and then it changed. Right now they're not doing
Yeah.
it, but I said that the problem with category management is if you don't do it right, it can fail. And
Yeah.
but obviously Suncor failed. Otherwise, you'd still have category management, right? It failed for Suncor. I mean, there are many companies out there that are trying to progress in category management. Okay, as a buyer, to try to make it into category management, you have to show on your resume really that you have skills that are outside of just using SAP. Okay, so as a buyer, have you conducted an end-to-end sourcing activity, including managing the supplier? Because if you did that, that's actually a category management skill that you should be proud of.
Okay.
Right? And many buyers have done that. They didn't call it category management, but they're the ones who negotiated, put the contract in place, and they also did the KPIs for the vendor, or they're the ones that manage them. You should say that you have that skill, right? Because that's an easy way to prove that you can progress into category management. Another thing you can do is you can take certifications, right? Like I keep on mentioning SIPs. There's a course you can take, not a course, a test you can take on SIPs. If you pass the course, you have a diploma now in SIPs. And there are like 6 levels. If you have work experience like you do, you can jump all the way to level 4. And then if you pass the level 5 exam, level 5 exam is category management. So it's like
I
proof.
could look at, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. I can look at that. I actually did start SIPs. I completed level 4. And I think I did 3 courses in level 5 at the time when I realized that SIPs did not have a reciprocity agreement with Supply Chain Canada.
They don't, yes.
Yeah, sadly.
But you don't need the SCM. I am being recorded. Hello, Kathy. Okay, so the thing about the SCMP, okay, and I'm saying this, Kathy, because it's the truth, is that it's only recognized in Canada. Right, whereas the SIPS diploma and advanced diploma is recognized in all of North America, the UK, the Europe, Middle East, and Japan, and of course Australia. There's SIPS Australia. So it's essentially that designation, that diploma is recognized almost globally, whereas the SCMP is Canada because it's a Canadian organization. That's just the truth. And I'm sorry, Kathy, that I have to mention that on the recorded video, but I'm giving advice to Mojo here.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's
so
good to know.
There's that. I mean, yeah.
I know.
Besides, I mean, companies, they don't really give too much importance of where you got your certification. What matters is you have one. That's all.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, and I'll see you next week. Are you Calgary based?
I'm Calgary based, yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm in Fort Mac.
Oh, Fort Mac. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice. And you know what? Maybe that's why you're safe, because most of the people's the staff at Suncor laid off were Calgary.
No, even the Fort Mac folks were affected too.
Also, but
a lot of them.
A lot too. Oh,
a lot of them. Yeah.
That's terrible. Huh. I'm glad you're still there. You must be one of the better ones.
I wish I could say that, but no. Yes, well, no. Like I had, I worked with great people, who were asked to leave. it was hard. It still
Wow.
is. Yeah.
Hang in there.
Thank you.
The layoffs will end soon enough, right?
Ooh,
Suncor has to come to a stable point eventually. They can't lay off
yeah.
everyone, right? And then
Mhm.
just hang in there, do a good job, right? And then Suncor will change. Who knows? They might bring back category management.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
Can't wait
Or
for
you look,
that. Yeah,
or you look somewhere else.
I know. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. See you next Saturday.
Yeah, see you too.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.